Hello, I'm Amy Merkel, a counselor and the Transfer Center Director at Santa Rosa Junior College, and this workshop is going to go over the UC Transfer Admission Guarantee and the process of applying for that, as well as looking at the resources we have available for you. So let's go ahead and jump right in here. So the UC tag is a guarantee of admission if you meet the requirements. So it's really important that you spend time looking at what the specific requirements are for each school. There are 6 UC campuses that participate in the tag that are listed here. You would tag to one of the above schools, and then you can apply to as many of the other campuses as you want. But again, it's important to do that research to see which campus you qualify to tag with, and then you would apply to the other campuses through the regular application process. So on the SRJC Transfer Center website, we have a tag checklist that you could look at and see if you qualify. And so let me show you where to find that. So under resources, you would go down to the tag and then scroll down, and right here, let me scoot this over a little bit, we have the steps. And so you can go through this first and look at the information that we have available for you and what steps you need to do to complete the tag process. You're going to submit your tag by September the 30th, and then you're going to complete the UC application by November 30th. You still apply to the campus that you tag to, so that's really, really important. Some students in the past have thought the tag application took care of the regular admissions application, and it does not. So you will tag and you will apply. For UC Davis, SRJC counselors will review the tags for UC Davis. So we go through and look to make sure that everything was done correctly. This is the process that UC Davis has created. We are not giving any type of an approval. If you hear back from us, it's because we want you to correct something. So it's important that you check your email and respond as soon as possible so that we can move your tag along. Although your tag is due by September 30th, we have until October the 15th to finish our review. So don't freak out if you hear from us on October 2nd. Your tag is not late, okay? You can't turn it in on the 30th and we review it by the 30th. So they give us a little extra time. If you've attended another college and your transcripts are not on file at SRJC Admissions and Records Office, then we would ask that you email those transcripts to Candy Owens. So you can write down her email here so that we can have those transcripts to do as part of our review. Again, this is only for UC Davis. So if you are tagging to UC Davis and you have not turned in all your transcripts to SRJC, then please email them to Candy. They can be an unofficial snapshot. We would not be turning these into A&R. It would just be for our own review. Davis and Merced will inform you in November if your tag was approved. The other campuses just use it as part of the regular admissions process, and so you still would not hear if you were admitted until March or April. So the requirements to tag, you must have completed at least 30 semester UC transferable units by the end of summer of 2020. So that's the first thing that you want to look at is, do you have those 30 semester units by the end of summer? That can include AP coursework. It can include coursework from another school, but you just have to have those 30 UC transferable units by the end of summer. Remember, at SRJC, anything numbered 1 to 47 is considered UC transferable. You must meet the definition of a California community college student. So the tag is only for California community college students, and so this is why you have to have completed at least 30 semester UC transferable units prior to transfer at one or more California community colleges. So you may not have attended a community college last year. Let's say you were at a four-year university last year, but by the time you transfer to the UC, you will have those 30 units from a community college, then you're fine. The last college attended in a regular session prior to admission to a UC campus has to have been a California community college. You need to meet the GPA and any other requirements for your campus. If your major is a selective major, then you need to pay particularly close attention to that and make sure you've met those requirements. And if you have completed AP English, you can only use that to satisfy one of the two English course requirements for admissions. So what that means is you could count the AP towards English 1A, but if you took AP Lit, then we're not going to count both AP Comp and AP Lit towards your UCE requirements. You would need to take a second English class, philosophy, speech that meets that requirement. And you can talk with one of us if you have questions about that. All right, so the following students are not eligible for TAG. Students who have previously enrolled at a UC campus during a regular term cannot submit a TAG application to return to that campus. So if you were at UC Irvine and you left and you want to go back to UC Irvine, you cannot TAG there because you are not a true transfer student. You're a readmit student, so you need to talk with them about the readmit process. If you are concurrently enrolled in high school, you are not TAG eligible. And students who have already earned a bachelor's degree, a graduate degree, or a professional degree cannot do a TAG. You are again going to submit your UC application by November 30th. And you want to review the TAG matrix, which is really helpful and can answer a lot of questions on each of the campuses and what their requirements are. So let's take a look at the TAG matrix together. And so right back on the Transfer Center website, here's the UC TAG matrix. And so what it shows you is going down are the campuses and going across are questions. One of the most important boxes I always point out is the contact information. So feel free to contact these campuses if you have questions. And then let's pull up a question here that's pretty common. This one here, completion deadline for math. So for Davis, you have to have your UC math course completed by the end of fall, but for UC Irvine, it had to be the end of summer. So if you are just now in your first UC transferable math class in fall of 2020, you do not qualify to TAG to UC Irvine. So these are the little things that you have to pay attention to make sure that you qualify for each campus, okay? All right, so the matrix is really helpful. The GPA calculation, when you fill out the TAP, the application will compute a GPA based on UC transferable courses completed at a California community college. So if you have attended another school, maybe a school outside of California or a CSU or a California private, it is not going to calculate those in. And so just pay close attention to that. You should then do it by hand to make sure that you have met the GPA requirement. Okay. All right, so then back on the Transfer Center website, we have resources for each of the campuses. So let's look at Irvine here. We have a tip sheet. And so this is the first place to start. So one of the first things you want to look at is GPA. So for Irvine, you need a 3.4 by the end of summer 2020 for fall of 2021, okay? And so if you do not have a 3.4 GPA, then you don't qualify to TAG to UC Irvine. The TAG criteria is always a little bit higher than regular admissions. So let's say you're at a 3.2, I would still encourage you to apply to UC Irvine through regular admissions, just not through the TAG, okay? So for Irvine, you would not qualify for that. So let's go and look at a different campus. Let's look at Davis because we have a lot of resources for Davis. So Davis has a lot of selective majors, as does UC Santa Cruz. And so what we do at SRJC is we take that information and we go through it for you and tell you what it is you need to do for SRJC. So the psych major is in the College of Letters and Sciences at UC Davis. You have to have an overall transferable GPA of a 3.2. And then you need to complete the following courses and maintain a 2.9 in the entire group of courses. If one course from the group is completed at the time of the tag, the course must have been completed with a B- or higher. So we don't do plus or minuses at SRJC, so it would have to be a B. So the courses that they require, the site is Davis and the site is SRJC. So you have Psych 1A, a stats class, and the most common here is one of these bios along with Anthro 1. Okay, so those courses would need to be done by the end of spring of 2021 with a 2.9 GPA in the courses and an overall GPA of 3.2. So if you don't have that, if you don't have a 2.9 for this group of courses, say, then you would want to tag elsewhere, or you would want to look for a different major at UC Davis that might be of interest to you. So you want to go through all of the resources that we have on the Transfer Center website to help you in determining which campus is going to be the best school to tag to. So the TAP is how you complete the tag application. And so I have a TAP created that I've already signed into, okay? And so the TAP you may have created a year or two ago, and so it makes it fairly easy. But I just want to point out a couple things. This is just all basic information, about yourself. But let's go into my academic history and go into coursework. So let's take a look at that. So you can see in summer of 2018, I took English 100, okay? Now let's go ahead and add a course to this term just so I can show you how it works. So I'm going to type in math and do a search. Okay, so here's all the math classes. Well, I took math 155 and it's not here. So the reason why is this is only going to include UC transferable courses, okay? So my course is not listed at it. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to put the subject is math. The course number is 155. The title is intermediate algebra. This course is in progress planned. No, I completed it with a C. And it is 4 units. So now I will add it, okay? So now you can see I have Math 155 on here. Other courses that are UC transferable will just pop up, okay? So let's go ahead and add counseling and do a search, okay? So now anything with counseling in there is going to pop up. So here's counseling 20, that's the class I took. I would add it, I got an A, and then you can see that that class got added somewhere. Here it is, counseling 20, okay? So I want to point out a couple things. For Math 25, I got a D, but I talked to my counselor and she told me that I could do academic renewal, which was the forgiveness of the D or F grade. So I didn't put my D in here. I put my grade as AR for academic renewal. However, I took Spanish 1, I also got a D, but instead of doing academic renewal, I repeated the class. So I'm going to put my Spanish 1 D grade in here, and then you can see it's notated here that I repeated that in spring of 2019, okay? So the system is calculating the B into the grade point average and not the D. So the UC system is, really good, and it does a lot of good work for you. Let me just show you some of the grades that you can choose from, just so you can see here. So let's just pick a class. And then here, you can see if you have an EW, or you have one of those extenuating circumstances, and you have an EW, you could choose that. If you just have a W, you would choose that. If If you have a course that was incomplete, you've received a pass or a no pass. The dropped, you don't really need to worry about. We don't do that. We don't indicate it on the transcript. They only want grades that are indicated on a transcript or if you did academic renewal. Okay, so that's what you have to choose from. So now I have a note here. It's asking me to explain the gap in education between fall 19 and summer of 2020. So this is them pointing out that they recognize that something is missing, okay? And they're asking you, hey, did you forget to enter something? Or are you trying to hide something from us? So here I said I withdrew from all of my classes in spring of 2020 due to COVID-19. Okay, so anything like that, it just needs to be one simple statement as to what was going on. Okay, so if you withdrew from all of your classes one semester, you can explain that. If you didn't attend because you were working or you had a child or whatever it might be, you can just put in a brief statement. You can see for fall of 2020, my grades are listed as in progress. You are going to tell them what you plan to take in spring. Now this might change and you will then inform them of that, but you're going to do your best job of figuring out what you plan to take and you put those grades in as planned. Here it's calculating my GPA for me. And then down here it's showing what courses meet the UC admissions requirements. So I took English 1A and Philosophy 5. Maybe you took AP English, okay? I took statistics, and then here's my general education classes meeting the various areas. So you can see all of that information in there. So now let's go ahead and act like we are going to apply for the tag. So we would go here. You put in your tag term and campus choice. So my campus choice is Davis, and I'm a Soc major. And so now I'm going to go down here and start tag submission. And then this is just asking me, well, I've done a lot of tags in the past. Don't worry about that. You can mark one of these if you're UC Transfer Pathways or Pathways Plus. Learn about it. Select it if you meet it. Okay, it's not a big deal. Now, there's a section here for additional comments. One of the rules that UC Davis has is they prefer that you have been a full-time student from spring of 20 to spring of 2021. So I'm telling them that I'm going to be part-time in spring of 2021. I'm only in 9 units because I've completed all requirements and plan to work to save money for college expenses. They are fine with that, okay? They understand that. They don't want you taking classes that you don't necessarily need, but they also want to make sure that you're ready for the rigor of a UC campus. And so that's why they have that preference that you've been a full-time student. Okay. You would then click next and go through the process to submit the tag. I'm not going to do that. Again, if you are doing a tag to UC Davis, it would then come to myself or Robin or another counselor, and we will review that tag and tell you anything that needs to be fixed. Okay. All right. So coming back to the PowerPoint here. This is not part of the tag, but it's just a little shout out that I want to give. So for personal insight questions that are on the UC application, you want to start thinking about these now. Don't wait until November, okay? So there's one required question that all transfer students answer, and then there are 7 additional questions that you choose 3 to pick out and write on. Your response is limited to 350 words, so you don't have a lot of words. You need to be concise, but start reviewing these to at least decide what questions are you going to answer and then begin working on them, bit by bit. We will be holding brainstorming sessions and we will help with reviewing PIQs. However, it's not part of the application review, so you want to make sure that you get in for that help if you need it. So review the Transfer Center website because we have a lot of assistance on there for students. In fact, let me bring the page up one more time just to show you some of the resources that we have for students that are going through the transfer process. If I can get in here, sorry. Let's see. All right, so on the Transfer Center homepage, I just want to point out a few things here. One, we have this button for apply, and it has all different information and resources available for both the CSU, the UC, and the Common Application, so you can utilize that. The other thing that is new this year is the Canvas page, and this will be up very, very soon. It may even be up as you're watching this video, and that is going to be a huge resource for you as you're going through the process of applying. So be sure to take advantage of everything that's available on the Transfer Center website. So the other thing that I just want to mention is that we will, through our workshops in person or in Zoom, we will meet with you one-on-one to do a quick, question and answer with you. And so if you were unable to attend a live portion of this part of the workshop, you might want to jump in for that second hour of the workshop to get the information reviewed for yourself and any questions answered that you might have. All right, good luck with the tag, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us.